Afi, nennirðu að segja sögu?
Viltu heyra fallega sögu? Eða ljóta?
Veistu hver þú ert?
Hver ég er? Ég er maður. Nánar. Faðir. Afi. Lögga. Ekkill.
Það tókst loks að safna kjarki til þess að pakka allir dótinu hennar saman. Og það er í þessum kassa.
Það er haldið fram Ingibjörg. Hvað? Akkur ertu að spyrja því? Ég hafa átt tilfinningunum að hún er að fela eitthvað. Að það var eitthvað sem hún sagði mér ekki.
Tilbúin?
Já.
Ertu að Ingimundur? Heyrðu í mér. Ég held að væri gott fyrir þig að tileinka þér meiri svona sjálfsást.
Ég heyrði Bjössa öskraðan. Að það væri drepa hann.
Nei, auðvitað ekki.
Ég held að þú sett of harður við sjálfa þig. Þegar við elskum einhver af öllu hjarta, þá viljum við gera allt sem í okkar valdi stendur til að særa einhver frá manns.
Hvernig myndirðu lýsa fullkomnum degi?
Sveiki visi, prisijungę prie vis dar besitęsiančio kino pavasario ir šiandien džiaugiuosi galėdama pasisveikinti ir pravesti šį pokalbį su vieno turbūt populiariausių kino pavasario filmo Balta diena pagrindiniu aktoriumi Ingvar Egert Sigurdsson, kuris Kanų kino festivalio paraleliniai programai Kritikų savaitė buvo apdovanotas pagrindiniu prizu. Pokalbis vyks anglų kalba ir štai aš sveikinusi su mūsų šiandienos svečiu. Hello, Ingvar. Thank you so much for joining us today. It would have been a much bigger pleasure to welcome you in Vilnius and have a real-time Q&A with the real audience in front of us. But I guess these are the times that we have to shift everything into screens.
Exactly. Yeah, I would love to be in. There's quite a long time I've been in Vilnius, but I've been there like 3 times before. Long time ago.
I really hope that with your next film next year, we will be able to host the festival properly and have guests as it's supposed to be. But we're here to talk about a White Day, which probably since the premiere in Cannes and since the finishing of the shooting, you probably have done other works. But still, the film is well, until the quarantine, it was traveling around in places, and it was probably one of the biggest and one of the most successful films from the last year. But actually, its filmmaker Pálmason, it's only his second feature. I wonder what made you actually accept this role, and maybe it was something that you read in the script, or maybe it was Winter Brothers that you liked so much. Tell us a little bit about the beginning, how you jumped on this project.
Yeah, it's because actually when he was in film school, he was doing his last film. He asked me to play one of the leads in his last film. So it's like a 30-minute short film, his graduation film. So I was in that one, and I liked him a lot. I liked his direction and his like artistic view, and so yeah, we liked each other a lot. So we decided to work on something else in the future, and he came up with this idea. So he actually wrote this film, A White Day, with me in mind, as the lead character. So that's the reason. So I was with him. It took like 5 years to develop the script, and so I was with him. I didn't interfere in the writing, but I knew what was coming up all the time. So I was like, I knew what to expect. Yeah.
Okay. Were you actually involved in developing the character? Like when he was writing the script, were you? Well, it was obviously written for you to be in the main role, but were you actually allowed to, I don't know, make changes or to put your inputs?
Yeah, I mean, that's not like, it's just a dialogue between us. It's not like I have an idea to put in, it's just like, but I trust him completely. He's a fantastic artist, so I'm in good hands. Actually.
Okay, but tell us a little bit more about the Igmundur. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrongly, but who is he? And maybe what was the most in his persona, in this character, in this person? What was it that sort of made you? Think that, okay, this is something that I really want to do. It's interesting for me as an actor to play it.
Yeah, I mean, there are possibly many things, but I thought it was quite an unusual script, unusual storytelling. So that was I like that. I like it's kind of, there's a lot of, you can see it when you read the script. It looks quite simple, but it is behind the words. There are much more behind them. So it's like it's really deep and well thought. You can see it, and there's there's kind of a rhythm in it, like a music. You can feel the rhythm from the script. So right away when I read the final script, I was very excited and looking forward to start shooting it. And there's something about this character that is he's like he's all the time just about to explode. His tension is, but you can't see it, but he's looks calm, but you can feel this tension in himself, that he needs some answers from the past, from about his wife. He's a grieving man. He really deeply misses his wife, and I think even though we don't get to know her completely, we can look into the window of her their past life, and we can see a little bit how, and in my mind she was the opposite of him, very cheerful and creative person that he needed. So that was very exciting to deal with.
You mentioned actually mourning, and I think that mourning is one of the main features that sort of describes the period of the main character he's living in. But again, this is not a state that it's very difficult, that is very easy to sort of to picture or to put on screen. It's not like anger or joy or something like this.
No.
I think that it requires a lot of creativity and ability to like through some, I don't know, some very small details or very, very small miniature gestures to sort of to depict it. But was it difficult for you to
I think because I've been in this business for a long time. So I was like working on stage for many years, and so I've been doing a mixture of stage acting, film acting, and for a radio and all kinds of media. And so I'm and I've been really lucky to, through the years, I've been dealing with all kinds of things, all kinds of characters. So I was, in that sense, I was well prepared for to deal with this role. And I think stage work is made me, I think, a better film actor than people can imagine often, because they think that that's a totally different thing, but the stage acting is a really tough and great school for all kinds of acting. And so being with a strong presence on stage, you have to be able to have a strong presence on stage without actually doing anything. You have to fill out your energy, to fill the whole theater with your energy. And I look at the same when I'm like we're like working on this character, that he is like filling the whole frame that he is in with his energy, and thoughts.
When you were working with Pálmason, and when, like, in the process of writing the story, we only see this particular time that the main character, when the story takes place. But did you actually talk a lot about the past life of Ingimundur? Did you actually have in mind his whole background and his story? Did you have to create it, or it was enough just the few facts that we also know while watching the film?
Yeah, we didn't talk a lot about it, mainly because I think he wanted me to create it myself, in my mind, to create what kind of past did they have together, and what kind of life, where is he coming from and stuff. So like when I asked him, who is this guy, where does he go, what is it? And he said, well, I don't know. It's like, because when you're writing a script, like, and writing all those characters, there are so many things and so many layers and so many ideas that you get like I think you get a little bit like it's difficult to be very clear about things sometimes, when we start to shoot. So I had to create it, more or less myself, or of course we talked about it, and I said, I think he was like that. I think he got mad, and I think he went to hospital, before, 2 years ago, all kinds of, ideas about the past.
Yeah. Would you say that that the character that you're playing is very close to? Because I think that the movie is sort of commenting on this sometimes a little bit toxic masculinity, the power that he has and he cannot, control, and these, moments of explosion that you mentioned as well. Is it close to the, let's say, the typical Icelandic mentality, or it's sort of extreme?
I don't know. I think it's universal. I mean, you can find this kind of guys all over the world. I mean, he is especially in the older generations. When you had to show, like in the old days, like here in Iceland, it's a very harsh nature sometimes, and weather. So, and you had, through the years, you have to live in this environment and not show any weakness. You have to show strength. And I think he's marked by that kind of, you know, the male and the female attitude through the years, and you can see him easily in Icelandic literature. That kind of guy who really has to survive and bring in, you know, and stay strong for his family. And you can actually read these kind of in the old Icelandic sagas. You can feel like in my mind there's it comes a character called Egill Skallagrímsson, and he's from Egil's saga, and he's a very tough farmer, but also a Viking, and so it reminds me of him, because also that guy is grieving. He's mourning his favorite son who died, and he can't deal with it. You know, he can't deal with the sorrow. He doesn't know how to. So his way to deal with it was to write a poem about his son and his loss. But Ingimundur, he builds a house.
Yeah, and this house becomes actually really symbolic. But you mentioned before the actual connection between Icelandic people and the nature, and also I think this film is really particular in terms of how actually the nature is being used to complement on the inner life of the main character, actually, on these main explosions, and it's used in I think in a really masterful way. I wonder, as an actor being on the set, whether you were like really aware of the bigger artistic idea of the director, what he has in mind, you know, what shot will be followed by which shot, and again, this connection between the character that you play and also the nature, whether these connections were really, you know, talked about during the process of filming.
Yeah, I mean, also it is quite clear in the script, and you can see the whole film, you know, and you can imagine, you know, and it's not the film itself. It's not far from the script, because sometimes it changes a lot, but you can also feel his artistic, his artistic view is very strong, and he's very powerful on set. He's really ambitious, and you can feel his energy, and you become. And you want to be with him in this energy, this creative energy, and so it's a lot of fun. It's really difficult because we do many takes, and it's cold and wet, and can be, and it's tough, but it is worth it, you know.
Mm. Yeah. Do you remember the hardest scene that you did in this film?
The hardest, I think possibly it was just when we started. You know, it's always very exciting to start when you to feel how the machine is working, or the whole crew, and yeah, I mean, it was tough to start, but. Maybe the scenes with the girl in the tunnels, they were like they were tough in sense of how cold it was and wet, but no, yeah, but you know, anyway, it was also fun. But it's difficult to say what was the most tough.
Yeah, but I believe that actually coming into such a close contact with the young actress who's your granddaughter in the film. I don't know if you knew each other very well, but also there are scenes where there are scenes with the blood, there are scenes with the violence, there are scenes where you explode, and she's near, and I believe this is something that. That is not so easy to handle, but tell me a little bit more about working with that brilliant young actress.
I mean, that was just amazing. I mean, she is a miracle from heaven. I love her. I mean, she is just like my heart. Maybe, yeah, when you ask, that was the toughest scene, when I had to shout at her and be really mad at her and let her cry. It was unbelievable. It was unbearable, actually. But, you know, we needed to do it. And she's a child. She's playful child, but she's also kind of like an old soul. She's also like an experienced soul, you know. And sometimes you imagine that she has seen it all, you know. So it was easy to work with her because she was there for me, and I was there for her, and yeah, and I don't know, I didn't know her before. We met like maybe 3 weeks before the shootings, coincidentally, and like in the hot tub in the swimming area, and she spotted me in the hot tub, and she ran up to me and said, "You are gonna play my granddad." And I said, "Yeah," and then we hugged, and that was just like a decision. I mean, we knew both that we had a big responsibility in this, and she's aware of that, and she was like, she's very professional, unbelievably.
Oh, the connection between you is it's incredibly magic. You've been actually in really many Icelandic films, and as you mentioned, you have experience on the stage as well. In Lithuania, Icelandic films, they are of incredible popularity as well. In Kino Pavasaris in Vilnius Film Festival, where a White Day takes place, Icelandic films are always one of the most popular from our program. I wonder if, of course, I'm not asking for the answer, but I wonder if you ever thought about why Icelandic films, you know, cinema coming from a relatively small nation, are somehow so appealing for the majority of the rest of the world. They're having a very successful life. Have you ever thought about it? And maybe you have some speculative ideas.
I wish I had a simple and great answer for it, but I don't know what it is. But I think it might be because of that we are very. It might be very exotic to be from an island that is so in the middle of the North Atlantic Sea, and it is also known for very special nature and power. I mean, because there's such an energy, you know, there are volcanoes here and hot springs and a lot of lava and open, strange landscape from other places, and so that might be one reason, you know, and also might be because of we look at ourselves as still as a good storytellers, because that, like, in the 10th century, in the 11th century, in the 12th century, in the 13th century, we wrote this unbelievably lot of literature that still exists, and some of it, and a lot of it is lost. But maybe it's because of that we look at that as our cultural treasures. So maybe still we look at ourselves as storytellers, and maybe therefore we, you know, every other person is writing here in Iceland, you know.
Yes, and then maybe not particularly in this film, but Iceland has this particular sense of humor, which I think it's always something that really works in Lithuania, at least. And of course, that connection with the nature, it's maybe something that that we long for example. But coming back to A White White Day, another very special thing about it is the fact that it was shot on 35 millimeters. And this is not something really common nowadays. And I believe that you, as an actor, have experienced lately, probably most of the time you're being shot by digital cameras, but this is 35. Can you comment a little bit about the differences and whether there's a certain advantages on 35?
Maybe I grew when I started, acting for film. We were shooting on film, and there was no digital cameras until like, it was up till like 2000 something. I was mainly shooting, acting for a camera. I was shooting on a film, either 35 or 16 or whatever. So I'm used to it. And then when I started to act for digital cameras, I was kind of it was strange, so many takes, and sometimes I think it's like you become more. It's like every single take becomes so important when you are acting for a real film camera. Maybe that's the difference.
Is it, as an actor, for an actor, is it easier to know that you cannot make another try, another double?
You can always ask for, if you want, you can always ask for one more, but you also have to trust the director. If he's like, we got it, we got it, I have it, so you have to trust also. But you can also ask for another one if you feel for it. Yeah.
Our time is actually coming to the end, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, that would be our biggest pleasure to host you one day for real in Vilnius. I wonder if you're working on something new in film, and in general, maybe you can just tell us what's happening now in Iceland, whether you're able to work or everything is on pause.
Yeah, we are we are not locked in, but we are not allowed to work many together. So I have been doing a little bit of job, like reading poems at the National Theatre and doing some. Doing a little bit of rehearsals for a TV series that we had already started, but we had to shut it down for a while. It's called Katla, and it's named after one of the biggest volcanoes in Iceland. And it's about people living under this volcano, which is erupting. And very, very exciting TV series that hopefully we can, when this slows down, and we can start to work a little bit again on that. Now and then, so I'm just using time here at home, and I'm painting my apartment and keeping myself busy. But I really, it would have been perfect if I would be there with you guys in Vilnius, and because I worked there. I played there on stage. I worked with stage directors like Oskaras Korsonovas and Rimas Tuminas, and you have fantastic theater. You at least you had. And I haven't been there for a long time.
We still haven't, and we still hope that you will one day you will come and we will see you either on stage or in cinema with your next film. But thank you so much for your time, and I hope this will pass pretty quickly, and you'll be able to get back to work and stay safe.
You too.
I hope to see you again.
See you later. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much. Bye.
Bye.